So we can start now. I think the page is 303. And we have to redo a para, according to my note. It is true that intellectual deliberation. Has everybody got it?
Yes, Ranga.
Yes, Ranga. It's 302 in our book and 288 in the other volume.
Right. So, I read each sentence and then see if it is clear. Good morning, Karika.
Good morning, Rangaja.
You have come after many days.
Yeah, I was out. I just came.
You said you were traveling.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we are in the section, every time I remind you, we have finished the section Karma Yoga and now we are in the section of knowledge. Okay? Jnana Yoga. So now I am reading each sentence. We have read it yesterday, last time.
Ranga, the 1 minute I'll disturb. Sorry.
Yes, tell me.
Ranga, have you joined through the Teams or Skype?
I have joined through Skype.
Skype only.
But
I joined with
I'm on Team.
if you can hear,
I'm on the Team app. Yes, yes.
No, we can hear, Rangada. There is no problem at present. But you will have to download Teams and join through Team in this month itself. Otherwise, it will. That's why I was asking. That is the only reason I was asking.
That's right. So I'll do that. Kiran, you are on Skype or you are on Team?
On Skype, Rangada.
Oh, you are also on Skype. Okay. So I'll download Team also.
Today we will have the class continued. I just wanted to mention remind everybody because it will be necessary. Otherwise, by the end of the month again joining class and all that will become a problem. That's why.
So we can because I sent the link to everybody, and if somebody has not received, like Tarika or Jishnu, you can request Kiran, and she will send you the link. And we can all download. On Thursday we can try. No?
Yes, Rangada, that's what we'll have to try once or twice. Because
We'll try Team on Thursday.
Yes, Rangada, I received the link.
Okay. So, I am now reading each sentence. It is true that intellectual deliberation and right discrimination are a important part of the yoga of knowledge. Okay. But their object is rather to remove a difficulty than to arrive at the final and positive result of the path. Now, jnana, spiritual knowledge, can be obtained not by the intellect, but by going above the intellect. That is very clear. So, but still Sranga is saying intellectual deliberation, vichara and viveka. Okay. These are two terms used. So, when they are used like that, vichara and viveka, both are part of the intellectual discipline. Vichara is going to think about the problems and try to solve it at the intellectual level. And discrimination is viveka, trying to understand discrimination, okay, the right understanding of things, removing the false from the true. That is discrimination. So, Sranga is saying that also doesn't give you knowledge, spiritual knowledge, but it prepares you for it. Okay, so that's it. Our ordinary intellectual notions are a stumbling block in the way of knowledge. So, not knowledge of scientific knowledge, but there's a lower knowledge and a higher knowledge. Remember, the higher knowledge is the spiritual knowledge of reality. The knowledge, scientific knowledge, is knowledge of the appearances of things, the physical things. For they are governed by the error of the senses, and they found themselves on the notion that matter and body are the reality, that life and force are the reality, that passion and emotion, thought and sense are the reality. And with these things, we identify ourselves, and because we identify ourselves with these things, we cannot get back to the real self. All these things that we are identifying ourselves with are only shadows, reflections. They are not the reality at all. Like the photograph is the image or it's the image of the reality. It's not the reality at all. The world is a photograph. It's a symbol. It's not the reality. Therefore, it is necessary for the seeker of knowledge to remove the stumbling block and to get right notions about himself and the world. And the stumbling block is coming from where? Our concept that everything in the physical world is real, and also that the mind can know the reality. It can't. Okay, so for how shall we pursue by knowledge the real self if we have no notion of what it is and are on the contrary burdened with ideas quite opposite to the truth? So all intellectual notions are opposite of truth. The intellectual notions are giving you dualities are real. The spiritual knowledge is telling you duality is not the reality, oneness is the reality. So obviously you have to go beyond the mental, beyond the mind. Okay, so that's what he said. Therefore, right thought is a necessary preliminary. You must understand things at least. You must know that, mentally you must know that oneness is the truth and not the multiplicity. And once the habit of right thought is established, free from sense error and desire and old association and intellectual prejudgment. Prejudgment means you start with a notion and take that to be the truth. It should be exactly the opposite. All intellectual suppositions and prejudices, you must think of them clearly as prejudices and go beyond them. The understanding becomes purified and offers no serious obstacle to the farther process of knowledge. Still, right thought only becomes effective when the purified understanding it is followed by other operations, by vision, experience and realization. So these three things, so we will expand on them later. What is vision? What is experience? What is realization? Okay? So, in fact, exactly that's the next paragraph. What are the operations? He is going to discuss vision, experience and realization. Okay? So now we can go to the next para, which Pallavi will read because it's Tuesday is her day. Not always, but mostly. So,
Okay, Rangada.
go ahead. What are your...
Shall I start?
Yeah, please start.
What are these operations? They are not mere psychological self-analysis and self-observation. Such analysis, such observation are like the process of right thought of immense value and practically indispensable. They may, even if rightly pursued, lead to a right thought of considerable power and effectivity. Like intellectual discrimination by the process of meditative thought, they will have an effect of purification. They will lead to self-knowledge of a certain kind and to the setting right of the disorders of the soul and the heart and even of the disorders of the understanding. Self-knowledge of all kinds is on the straight path to the knowledge of the real self. The Upanishad tells us that the self-existent has so set the doors of the soul that they turn towards, and most men look outward into the appearances of things. Only the rare soul that is ripe for a calm thought and steady wisdom turns its eye inward, sees the self and attains to immortality. To this turning of the eye inward, psychological self-observation and analysis is a great and effective introduction. We can look into the inward of ourselves more easily than we can look into the inward of things external to us, because there, in things outside us, we are in the first place embarrassed by the form, and secondly, we have no natural previous experience of that in them which is other than their physical substance. A purified or tranquilized mind may reflect, or a powerful concentration may discover God in the world, the self in nature, even before it is realized in ourselves. But this is rare and difficult. The footnote is, in one respect, however, it is easier because in external things we are not so much hampered by the sense of limited ego as in ourselves. One obstacle to the realization of God is therefore removed. And it is only in ourselves that we can observe and know the process of the self in its becoming and follow the process by which it draws back into self-being. Therefore, the ancient counsel, know thyself, will always stand as the first word that directs us towards knowledge. Still, psychological self-knowledge is only the experience of the modes of the self. It is not the realization of the self in its pure being.
Okay, so there is a paragraph that we have just read, and I'll do one thing. I will give the summary of what he is saying, then we'll be able to probably understand better what it is. Then we'll go sentence by sentence. So, I'm reading the summary. These are my words, so you have to take it in that way. We are giving the core of the meaning of what he's saying here. So, if mind is incapable of spiritual knowledge and attaining to the Brahman, what then can we do? Then what can do so? What can do so? If the mind cannot, what can do so? It is spiritual vision, experience, realization. What exactly are these three things? Are they self-observation and self-analysis? No, because these two operations are functions of mental intelligence. Okay? Self-observation and self-analysis are mental operations, our normal mind. Okay? But then, have they no value at all for a spiritual life? That's the question. Okay? So, the answer is, they do have an immense value if rightly pursued. Self-observation and self-analysis yield purification and power over oneself if used practically and not merely mental awareness. These two can correct many movements of heart and mind. As the Upanishad says, this is from the Katha Upanishad. Okay? The self-born hath set the doors of the body to face outward. Therefore, the soul of man gazeth outward and not in the self within. Hardly a wise man here and there, desiring immortality, turneth his eyes inward and seeth the soul within him. I read the translation of Sriyando in the Katha Upanishad. That's why it is classical language. Seeth, hath set. Okay, that's sort of it. Gazeth. Okay. Now, what is it? Who is the self-born? The self-born is your soul. Has set the doors of the body to face outward. And what are the doors? All our senses. Okay. They all go outwards. Interesting, no? Not a single one goes inwards except the mind. It's only the mind that can go inwards. As the Upanishad says, the senses are the doors of the soul and are designed to look outwards into the external world. But being oriented outwards, most men look at the physical world, outside themselves. Rarely does a wise man look into himself to discover the soul and the self. Self-observation and self-analysis are very important aids in this inward quest for the soul. We can look into ourselves in this way, but can we look into the inner reality of objects and persons external to us? To a certain extent we know my thoughts, my emotions, I know what is inside me, but I can't know the thoughts and emotions of others, or less even of objects. Even a person we don't know. That is more difficult because as they are veiled by the outer material forms. But a sufficiently purified and quietened mind can discover God even outside ourselves in the external world But this is more difficult than the inner discovery. Okay. The very interestingly, realization of the transcendent outside the universe, outside the individual. That he is not speaking of that. He is talking of the realization of God in the cosmos. Okay? The transcendental, the cosmic and the individual. So sometimes people find it easier to realize the divine in the cosmos. Sometimes it's possible to realize the divine within oneself. So simply is saying it depends on the person. But the ego within ourselves hampers and distorts. Whereas in the externals, the absence of ego is helpful. Okay? So it depends on the person. It's either this or that. That is why the ancient advise, know thyself, atmanam vidhi. Okay? Apne aap ko pehchan. This is also very often repeated. You must know yourself. It is the best counsel in the search for the soul and self. However, in spite of all these advantages, the psychological aids of self-observation and self-analysis cannot attain to the self. They are helps, but they cannot give you the knowledge of the self. Though they may facilitate it and get quite close. This is what he has said in the para. So now we know exactly what he has said. Okay? So, still, if you think we should read each sentence, we'll do that. Very quickly we can go through. Because sometimes the words and all that can be a little confusing. What are these operations? The operations of vision, experience and realization. He will explain one in each para. What are these operations? They are not mere psychological self-analysis and self-observation. This self-analysis, self-observation belong to the mind, not to the self. Such analysis, such observation are like the process of right thought of immense value. Note the word immense. Okay? It can really make a difference between the vital man and the mental man, the sattvic man. Okay? The sattvic man becomes sattvic by the process of right thought and practically indispensable. What is indispensable? Self-observation and self-analysis. They may even, if rightly pursued, lead to a right thought of considerable power and effectivity. Clarity of thought can definitely help. Okay? There is no doubt about it. Like intellectual discrimination, by the process of meditative thought, they will have an effect of purification. They will lead to self-knowledge of a certain kind and to the setting right of the disorders of the soul and the heart and even of the disorders of the understanding. Now, that's an interesting and raises the question, the soul has got disorders and the heart, of course the heart has got disorders because it can love and hate, it can also be very compassionate, but it can also be cruel. And even the disorders of the understanding. Disorders of the understanding, the mind. Okay? So, what is meant by disorders of the soul? The soul is divine in essence. But when it comes down here, it is covered up. By the time it comes down here, it is covered up by body, vital and mind. These are the disorders. So, the soul essentially is divine, but it gets misled because it is covered up by all sorts of wrong coverings. That's what is meant. The soul has no disorder, but the soul is subject to disorder. Okay? And the heart and even the disorders of the understanding. Self-knowledge of all kinds is on the straight path to the knowledge of the real self. So, the more you self-analyze and self-observe, you are on the right path. The Upanishad tells us that the self-existence has so set the doors of the soul that they turn outwards and most men look outward into the appearances of things. So all that we see in the physical world are only appearances. We are seeing only the outward form. It's like any fruit, okay? Take the orange. We are not seeing the inside. We are seeing only the outside. The rind, which is bitter and sometimes not even very, take a pineapple for instance, no? It's rough and it's got thorns outside. But the inside we don't see. Exactly in the same way, we don't see the inside of things. That's what it is. So this turning of the eye inward, psychological self-observation and analysis is a great and effective introduction. We can look into the inward of ourselves more easily than we can look into the inward of things external to us. Because there, in things outside us, we are in the first place embarrassed by the form, and secondly, we have no natural previous experience of that in them, which is other than their physical substance. Now, the word embarrassed is very interesting. It is not used in the normal sense. Okay? You do something and then you are embarrassed. You do something wrong and you are embarrassed. Not in that sense. Here it is obstructed by. Okay? We are obstructed by the form, and secondly, we have no natural previous experience of that in them, which is other than the physical appearance, physical substance. So when can we have the experience of the inside of things? When you go to the self. When you go to the subliminal self, or the, what is Sri calls it, the subliminal or the inner being, then you can see the inside of things and people. Okay? That's why they are called psychics. They can see inside. Or even feel their presence. A purified or tranquilized mind may reflect, or a powerful concentration may discover God in the world, the self in nature. There is a divine in nature also. That's a self in nature. There is a self in ourselves, there is a self in nature, and there is a self which is outside us and outside nature. That's a transcendent. Okay? Even before it is realized in ourselves, but this is rare and difficult. And that footnote is there saying that sometimes it can be the opposite. In one respect, however, it is easier because in external things, we are not so much hampered by the sense of the limited ego as in ourselves. The outside is difficult, the inside of the outer things is difficult because we see only the form. And within ourselves, the difficulty is the ego. Okay? So both are balanced.
Ranga,
yes, tell me.
The self in nature is not Purusha.
No. It's a conscious, it's a divine consciousness in nature, which is hiding behind the forms. You can say the Purusha, because Purusha is consciousness. Okay? But consciousness is something variable, na? Consciousness in matter is one, consciousness in vital is another, consciousness in mind is another, concentration on the spiritual plane is another. The same thing goes on becoming more and more wide, more and more knowledgeable, more and more pure. Okay. So you can say Purusha.
Because the nature is a capital N, so that's why I asked. The self in nature.
Nature is universe. The nature with an N cap is the universe, where all these forces are there. Matter is there, life element is there, that is it, Shakti, and also there is a mind element. All these are in nature. These three. When you use the word nature, I usually use the word level 1. Okay? In level 1, the universe, only these three things are there. The other things are there hiding behind. Okay? That's a self in nature is hiding behind the forms. Even before its realization ourselves, but this is rare and difficult. And it is only in ourselves that we can observe and know the process of the self in its becoming. The self at the spiritual level, there is no becoming. It's only being, because it is static. But when you say becoming, it's a movement in the physical world, and that's the difference between the spiritual planes and the physical planes. The physical planes, everything is in motion. Everything is in motion. But everything is in motion. But in the self, in the spiritual planes, level 2, there is no motion. It's immutable. Seema gave a message just now saying that she can't hear me. But can others hear me?
Yes, Ranga, we can hear you.
Yes, we can. I think he's making the same mistake I did. That the speaker has to be put on.
Okay, so she has a problem, but she has to solve the problem herself. Okay, then, so the process in becoming means in the physical world. When the self is, your soul is in the body mind life, it is imprisoned and it does not have it identifies itself with the body mind life. That is what is meant by becoming. And follow the process by which it draws back into self being. There you are. Self in the becoming is your soul in body mind life, identifying itself with body mind life. Self in the being is that same soul which withdraws and removes its identification with body mind life and goes to the level 2. It realizes that I am not the body, I am not the vital, I am not the mind. Then you enter the second level of the spiritual planes of consciousness. Okay. The higher mind, the element mind, the intuitive mind and the overmind. Therefore, the ancient counsel, advice, know thyself, will always stand as the first word that directs us towards the knowledge. The is in italics. The not the normal knowledge, not scientific knowledge, but the knowledge, spiritual knowledge. Still, psychological self-knowledge is only the experience of the modes of the self. Now that's interesting. He's talking about the modes of the self. Normally we speak of the modes of the Prakriti. The modes of Prakriti are Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. What about the modes of the self? The modes of the self are Saguna, Nirguna. Okay? The impersonal and the personal. The finite and the infinite. These are the modes of the self. Okay? It is not the realization of self in its pure being. Okay? The modes of the self, or maybe he is meaning here in this particular way, he is meaning the modes of the self, he means self in nature. So, psychological self-knowledge will not make the soul free. It will still be subject to the modes of self in nature. Okay? It is not the realization of self in its pure being. In pure being, it is divested of its identification with body-mind life. It is not making the mistake of thinking I am body-mind life. Now we can go to the next paragraph. Status of knowledge, then, which yoga envisages. How much time do we have? We have got time. So, next who will read? Anyone will read. Jishnu, you have the text with you?
I have the text, Ranga.
Yeah, then you can read the text, the status of knowledge.
The status of knowledge. Right?
Yeah.
The status of knowledge, then, which yoga envisages, is not merely an intellectual conception or clear discrimination of the truth, nor it is an enlightened psychological experience of the modes of our being. It is a realization in the full sense of the word. It is the making real to ourselves and in ourselves of the self, the transcendent and the universal divine. And it is the subsequent impossibility of viewing the modes of being except in the light of that self and in their true aspect as its flux of becoming under the physical conditions of our world existence. The realization consists of three successive movements: internal vision, complete internal experience, and identity.
So he is using three different words here. Internal vision. There he has said only vision, but here he is saying internal vision. To differentiate between external vision and internal vision. Vision means drishti, okay? The sight with an S cap, which looks into the inwardness of things. Complete internal experience and realization and identity. So these three words he is using differently slightly and enlarging our understanding of the three words he used earlier. Earlier he used vision, experience and realization. Now he is substituting the words. Internal vision, complete internal experience and identity for realization. Okay, it's a very small para, but Jishnu That, just 1 second.
Yeah, Rangada.
Yeah, that's psychical, huh? Psychical. 1 second. I've lost my, something has happened.
Ranga, it is not psychical, psychological.
Yeah, psychical. No, my computer is giving trouble. Just 1 second. Yeah,
Psychical and physical.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got it. So, now there's status of knowledge there too. There is a lower knowledge and a higher knowledge. So he is differentiating between the two in this small para. The status of knowledge or status of knowledge, whatever you want, then which yoga envisages is not merely an intellectual conception or clear discrimination of the truth, nor is it an enlightened psychological experience of the modes of our being. Okay, not the body-mind life, modes of our being. It's a realization, in inverted commas, in the full sense of the word. It is a making real to ourselves and in ourselves of the self, the transcendent and the universal divine. So, realization means it becomes absolutely real to us. It's not a mental understanding. It becomes absolutely real. You see the soul. Okay? Like the mother was seeing the soul of everybody. Okay? Not just simply a vagueness. In one case, you remember, in the case of Rijuta, that American lady, she saw
Rijuta.
Rijuta, that's right. She saw the soul bigger than the body. The psychic being she saw bigger than the body. She's actually seeing the soul. Okay? That is realization in the full sense of the word. It is the making real to ourselves and in ourselves of the self. To ourselves and in ourselves of the self. Transcendent and universal divine. And it is subsequent impossibility of viewing the modes of being except in the light of that self and in their true aspect as its flux of becoming under the psychical and physical conditions of our world existence. This realization consists of 3 successive movements. Internal vision, he is repeating, but adding a word. Internal vision, complete internal experience, and identity. So we still have 8 minutes or 7 minutes. We can read the next one. This internal vision. Yes.
Rangada,
Yes.
so I have a little small doubt in the word. For me in the book it is not psychical, it is psychological.
Oh, acha, I have made a note of that. SABCL is psychological because the handwriting is not very difficult. It's not very easy to read. Okay. Now note how psychological is much longer. So Srivdos have put in the manuscript, PSI is common to both and CAL is common to both. Okay. So when he is writing, he may write PSI and then just draw some and go on to the last syllable CAL. So they have read it as psychological, but under the scanner of modern computers, you can blow up the handwriting and you can see that it is psychical and not psychological. That's it. Okay. So it's a misreading.
I should write it in my book.
That is the work that the archives has done. I used to do that work also, and I found many mistakes. I used to read with Raman, and we found many wrong readings. Okay, and the wrong readings, very interesting. Both make sense, but you have to see the handwriting and blow it up and see. Then you can see that. So they have corrected from SABCL. They have corrected to psychical. Okay, that's the only thing. So, Harika,
Yeah.
read the next one.
Yeah, I can read Rangada.
Okay, we may have time to only read it perhaps. Read it. And now he is taking up one by one. He is taking up vision first.
Yeah. This internal vision, drishti, the power so highly valued by the ancient sages, made man a rishi or kavi and no longer a mere thinker, is a sort of light in the soul by which things unseen become as evident and real to it, to the soul, and not merely to the intellect, as do things seen to the physical eye. In the physical world, there are always two forms of knowledge, the direct and the indirect. Pratyaksha, of that which is present to the eyes, and paroksha, of that which is remote from and beyond our vision. When the object is beyond our vision, we are necessarily obliged to arrive at an idea of it.
Your internet is not working well.
My internet is not working well.
Now we can hear you.
Okay. When the object is beyond our vision, we are necessarily obliged to arrive at an idea of it by inference, imagination, analogy, by hearing the descriptions of others who have seen it, or by studying pictorial or other representations of it, if these are available. By putting together all these aids, we can indeed arrive at a more or less adequate idea or suggestive image of the object. But we do not realize the thing itself. It is not yet to us the grasped reality, but only our conceptual representation of a reality. But once we have seen it with the eyes, for no other sense is adequate, we possess, we realize. It is there, secure in our satisfied being, part of ourselves in knowledge. Precisely the same rule holds good of psychical things and of the self. We may hear clear and luminous teachings about the self from philosophers or teachers or from ancient writings. We may, by thought, inference, imagination, analogy, or by any other available means, attempt to form a mental figure or conception of it. We may hold firmly that conception in our mind and fix it by an entire and exclusive concentration. Notice, this is the idea of the triple operation of Jnana Yoga, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Hearing, thinking, or mentalizing and fixing in concentration. But we have not yet realized it. We have not seen God. And persistent concentration, or by other means, the veil of the mind is rent or swept aside only when a flood of light breaks over the awakened mentality. Jyotirmaya Brahman, and conception gives place to a knowledge vision in which the self is as present. Here that we knowledge, for we have seen. That revelation, whatever fadings of the light, whatever periods of darkness may appear, it can never irretrievably. There's a lot of disturbance. I don't know from where it is coming, but a lot of...
It is your own internet which is fluctuating, that's why. Anyway, go ahead, read, finish it.
The experience is inevitably renewed and must become more frequent till it is constant. When and how soon depends on the devotion and persistence with which we insist on the path and beseech by our will or our love the hidden deity.
Yeah. So here he is explaining what is meant by internal vision. Okay, that's the first. Then in the next paragraphs, he is going to explain to us what is experience. And finally, he will tell us what is the realization, that is identity. So one by one in each para he is going to explain to us. So this now the time is over today. So we will redo this para next time. Page 304 and this internal vision. We'll do that next time in detail. Okay? So. All right. So next time then, is it understood that we try